see here, you worked with Sacco a little bit, so you know her a little bit that way. But why do you think this got to where it got?
I think partly because there was some sort of irony here, or, you know, she was a PR person. She was a public relations professional. If anyone should know better than to post a message like that, it should have been her. And I mentioned on Reliable Sources yesterday, I would be one of the reporters calling her up, asking her questions about her company from time to time. And I never knew her Twitter account even existed. She was over on Twitter in relative obscurity until this one Twitter message was posted. But she should have known better since she works in this industry.
And, you know, just for those who are getting up to speed on this story, the tweet was that she was going to South Africa. She hoped she didn't get AIDS. She said, "I'm just kidding. I'm white." Adding to it on her side, her father from South Africa. She's going to visit family. She was born in South Africa. Kind of plays into her defense, Brian. She was like, you know, we're not aware. Well, she's from there. You'd think she would be aware, though you don't have to live in South Africa to understand the AIDS epidemic and the sensitivities involved. But the reaction, Brian, the hostility, the anger, the vitriol directed at her, such that even the company that fired her had to ask people to go easy on her. What about that part?
Well, I honestly thought that by Friday night, as her plane was about to land in South Africa after, you know, the better part of 12 hours of criticism online, that the reactions to her, some of the reactions to her, were as bad as her post. You know, I would have rather seen people take the higher ground and criticize her, you know, without resorting to the personal, without resorting to the vitriol. You know, there were even some death threats seen on Twitter toward her, and she hadn't had a chance to tell her side of the story yet. At that point, remember, before her plane landed, we didn't know if she'd been hacked yet. This is a very 21st century problem, by the way. I mean, the fact that she's on a plane, she didn't have internet on the plane, she couldn't see what was going on, she couldn't explain herself. I kind of thought that the trial by social media was just as bad as her initial post.
Yes, you talk about your kangaroo courts, and you have a great head on this stuff, so help me with this. So you have Sacco. You then have Steve Martin, who someone asks him how he's doing like grammar things with his Twitter followers, and he makes a joke about how to spell Lasonia or something like that. And he says, "Are you in an African-American restaurant or an Italian restaurant?" And he then deletes it and says this was insensitive. I'm an Italian-American. I didn't think it was insensitive, but he did. People did. But again, the reaction's very harsh. Then we get the father who's got his 4-year-old running next to him. We're going to do a little later in the show. And he's chiding his child, run faster, you're going to be a football player. In each of these instances, especially on Twitter, the reactions are so vicious, it makes me wonder what's going on. Because that's new to me, Brian. Your take.
Maybe it's that we have higher standards for these people. You know, Steve Martin is a celebrity. We expect some humor from him, but we are also very sensitive to people that seem to be getting themselves in hot water. You know, I think he was very careful to delete that tweet quickly and apologize. He followed the playbook, so to speak, about how to handle these situations. Justine Sacco couldn't because she was on a plane. She finally apologized yesterday after a day and a half had passed by. You know, the truth about the Twitter and Facebook and the internet in general is that there are hateful swamps wherever you go. I, for one, try to avoid those swamps. I think viewers at home probably should, too. And once in a while, when we see racist or insensitive messages outside those areas, like, for example, on Justine Sacco's Twitter account, it shocks us. So it's understandable why we react, why we want to know why these people post these things. But I think people have to make sure they keep on the higher ground and not resort to being as insensitive or as mean as the original comments.
There's a hypocrisy there that is stark, but I also feel like it's pushing the tone in general. I mean, you know, you're now in the pond with the rest of us, Brian. You know, you're respected as a reporter, but you'll see now, you'll start feeling those little teeth on your ankles about what happens online here, in cable especially. I just feel like the tone is shifting in a bad way. It's no longer, hey, Stelter, you're a good-looking guy and you're smart, but I disagree with your reporting. It's now, you're kind of a dummy, and you're lucky if that's all it is. And it gets worse from there, and I feel like it's bleeding into what's allowable on many levels. That's the concern, isn't it?
Well, that might actually be the positive when we have a Justine Sacco case, when there's a conversation that gets going about the fever swamps of the internet. I think it probably prods people to think twice or think 3 times before they post something, and to think twice before they criticize someone else. That might be one of the silver linings. You know, another silver lining is that there's been more donations to AIDS groups in Africa in the last couple of days, and I at least find that to be a positive part of this whole crazy story.
It is indeed a silver lining, and it would be nice if in situations that are ugly we can find ways to do something that helps us do better, which is one of my favorite hashtags on Twitter. Brian Stelter.